it's Jackie, and this is the Natural Healing Reel. I'm excited to share with you today my guest. He's an author, a motivational speaker, and speaks and advocates for autism. And he is the founder of crazyfitnessguy.com. If it's inspiration you're after, then I'm sure you'll love this episode. Please help me welcome Jimmy Clare to the Natural Healing Reel. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thanks for having me.
Little rough start there. Sorry about that. Tired this
I
morning.
had one last week, the week before that on my live stream. I'm used to it.
Good. Authenticity, right? So let's start out about talking about your book.
So currently I do not have a book at the moment. Submitted my, I co-authored two books. One of them, both of them are not out yet.
What are the names?
I don't know the names. The second one I know that it's going to be a transformational quote book where it has like 365 plus quotes in it, I believe, and then all transformational and everything. So I got my one page for the book. Yes, I submitted it last night. Should be out, I think, next month or December-ish. I'm not the one who's in charge of all the doing everything, and someone else is doing it. They just asked me to tag along. So I said, yeah, sure. It's like, as long as it's not the ones that, hey, join this and pay me $5,000. It's like, what? That's not even legitimate.
There's a lot of that.
Sure it is. It's like,
yeah, I know. It's sad that that's happening, right? So why don't you take us through your journey and what your purpose is for your for the autism and your speeches, and like what is your whole passion behind what it is you're doing? Where did that all begin?
So basically when I was younger, I didn't meet my milestones, and honestly, I never really understood all the milestones that someone sets on each individual, because you want to, I kind of wish I could ask that person who came up with this, like, to some kind of degree, and ask them, did you meet your milestones when you were younger? Because, everyone's different. Everyone learns at their own pace. And it's like, some things come easier to others. Like for me, technology comes easier for me than others. It takes my mom quite a bit of times to do stuff. Not playing games. I'm just saying there's different generations, and she helps me a lot with school papers, because Emily, she doesn't write for me, but she helps me brainstorm ideas, but she's always good at doing the thesis, because she's a good writer, where I'm like, I can write the middle stuff down, and I got that stuff, but the intro, thesis, and conclusion is like, oh, the three deadly works of hell.
Yeah, it's all got to be done in the yeah. I'm not good at that stuff either. It wasn't my forte as well, so I hear you. I still struggle with that, the grammar and I'm not sure. Right brain girl. All my girls are the same. It's a struggle. It doesn't come like a natural knowing like other people. So you are on the spectrum of autism yourself.
Yeah.
And so is this when did you guys realize that you weren't hitting the milestones? And then, so how and when did that kind of come about for you guys?
Well, I wasn't talking at a certain age, and I wasn't walking at a certain age. And luckily, I was smart enough to point at everything that I needed and wanted. And my parents figured it out. And I was like, wow, I was a smart baby back then, even though I didn't know how to talk. And I pointed at everything. And my parents were concerned because I didn't think I started talking until I was 2 or 3-ish. if I got that correct. Uh, I I was too young to remember,
Yep.
but
But it was
and
delayed, and so your parents were concerned, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and and like and my parents had this one doctor who took me to this one doctor who was like the rudest person whatsoever because I was not hitting my milestones. He was impatient because we were holding up his uh, afternoon to go to the opera with his wife, and it's like you're holding me up on this nonsense. And it's like I'm nonsense, cool. And it's like I don't think we ever saw the guy ever again because my dad gave him a boatload of his mind. And uh, but to fast forward a little bit, uh, my parents were worried that I wasn't ever going to be able to speak. And so they got me occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, pretty much it. And some of these therapies were in trial because stuff was new back then.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't say occupational therapy was new back then, but like speech therapy, and I was just getting my toes dipped in the water, figuring that out. And I remember I like this one story. My mom told me this, and it just stuck with me. She was helping her friend's husband, taking him to chemotherapy, and 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 she was telling her friend's husband about me not being able to speak at a certain age, like everyone else. And he said to my mom, "Don't worry about Jimmy never speaking because one day he'll never shut up." And he literally predicted his future because I haven't shut up ever since. And now my parents wish I shut up just once in a blue moon. And I said, I gave you a few years. Now I'm making up for lost time.
I was thinking that when you were saying that you were delayed in your speaking, I was thinking, your parents were worried, really? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's,
funny how things turn out.
yeah. Yeah.
And then so and then I was also told and finally when I was able to speak, I had, problems with my, uh, of hearing because I had a cholesteatoma in my right ear. Uh, I I kinda remember some of that. I had to get, like, multiple ear surgeries to
Uh,
remove that. That was always fun. Uh, I'm being totally sarcastic. It was not fun at all. And the, the so and the stuff that they put in my ears, it moved multiple times throughout the years. And so after the ear surgeries, I mean, before the ear surgeries began, I was also told my parents were also told by doctors I wouldn't be able to walk without braces or crutches, and that's where the occupational therapy came in. And what's funny, even though I had the occupational therapy, what really got me to walk was my dad was on a business trip. I think we went with him for whatever reason, and I saw an ice cream vendor selling ice cream, and I just got up and walked and went to go get ice cream, and my mom's like, "Out of all the occupational therapy, you just want an ice cream." I was like, "We all have our motivation."
Totally. Isn't that great? I love that story. I love that.
Yeah,
And you just got up and walked like you just didn't even think about it. It wasn't,
yeah,
it was just, okay, here I'm going.
yeah.
Oh,
I think I fell down it multiple times, but I still got back up and it's like, "I'm gonna get this ice cream now."
yeah. Yeah. Right on.
And
That's
eventually I got
cool.
the ice cream. Uh, but I kinda
Your
felt like
parents
I had my
gave
own
you lots of ice cream, I'm sure, after that.
yeah, I kinda felt like I had my own Rocky moment, though I was crawling and falling and walking at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so after that happened, the ear surgeries came because I was deaf in my right ear, and so I was misinterpreting, words because I wasn't like hearing every word everyone says. Like I could hear in my left ear, but it wasn't enough to, because everybody can hear from both ears, where I was hearing from like, huh, what did you say, huh? And
That would affect your balance, I imagine, as well. Like you're saying that you were falling when your one ear is not working. I think that it really throws your equilibrium as well. Is that
yeah,
don't sound right? Okay.
probably.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess not that one because again, this was still when I was very
Little.
young. So
Yeah. Yeah.
all I was going through was like, why am I not hearing out of this one ear? And
Yeah.
then it's like, is it broke? I don't know. I'm a
Tell me,
broken mess.
tell me about this that you were featured in New York City Times Square. What's that about?
Well,
What are you doing there?
so my one of my colleagues, she was I had her on my podcast and live streams a few times, and she was also one of the authors that I co-authored her book with. That she's still editing and everything, and and she told me about this one company doing this campaign in New York City, Times Square, and basically she's like, Jimmy, you should go and participate in this campaign. And I said, is it free or is it? And I was like, do I have to pay a fortune? Because I don't have a fortune. I wish I did because it would make my life much, much easier.
Yeah.
And she told me, uh, she's like, no, it's free. All they do is just mention the company on Instagram. They take your post, featured on the billboard in New York City Times Square. And when the campaign was for like people to post to their family and friends during, and this was during the pandemic, just saying, and it's like thinking of you and giving them a shout out. And I know my family and friends do not like being tagged in posts. I don't really like being tagged in posts, only like for promotional purposes, but like every
Yeah.
single one's like, oh, I get so many notifications, I don't even want to look at it anymore. And so I so I finally stopped doing all of that, and finally, uh, so now, so I decided to share my mission instead with everyone in the company. They featured it. They took a picture of it using a drone, I believe, and that's how I got featured.
Good for you.
And
How
too
great is
bad it
that?
didn't. Yeah, I felt great. I got it framed from Shutterfly, and
Yeah.
it was hanging in my room in my old house.
You have
I
to send me
still
a picture
haven't hung
of
up.
it. Send me a picture of it so I can put it up with your podcast. That'd be awesome. I'd love that.
Sure.
Okay. Good for you. That's fun. That's exciting. So you turn into
Yeah.
like overnight success, famous person overnight.
No, I wish. That only came like 25 years later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, But
Uh, so tell me about your podcast. What is the name of it?
so my podcast is called Crazy Fitness Guy Healthy
Okay.
Living Podcast. And if you think that's a mouthful, it's a lot less shorter because the first name was like 66 characters long. This one's like 33, but I wanted to differentiate myself compared to the other podcasts
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
And so it's geared towards people on and off the autism spectrum. So it could be someone knows someone on the spectrum, or that someone in their own family, or neighbors, or whoever. But it's not just all about autism. It's about entrepreneurship, fitness, lifestyle, self-help, self-care, everything
And
to have a balanced lifestyle, and inspiring stories, etc. But
yeah,
I say it's geared towards autism just to stand out, because when I looked around on different podcast platforms, there was a handful of shows geared towards autism, but then they stop either submitting content, and I was like, oh well, I want to have I'm passionate about multiple things. I'm not just autistic, and people
Yeah.
in autism community wants to be a part of everything, not just we're just
Yeah.
autism.
Yeah. Instead of being secluded and segregated off, we're all we're all should be together, right? It's like I agree 100% with what you're saying. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, And so that's why I just put it specifically to autism just to stand out a little bit, not just like, oh, I'm just like another health and wellness podcast out there, because I'm a little bit of everything just to keep content ideas going and not just like, I'm lost. I don't know what to do anymore.
Well, I think that that's great because it shows that, you're autistic and what you've moved yourself through, right? To get and then to walk through the fear to do this podcast and to share that you're functioning just fine, like you at full capacity. For we're not all the same. We don't all function the same. And then we are not a part of something if we're not fitting into the box. But it's I think it's got to change, and I think that with podcasts and information for people to know that there's other people that have lives like them. They're not perfect like the Ken Barbie dolls that we grew up with, or whatever it is, right? That Hollywood's posting for us to fit into. I love that it's just your natural life, right?
Yeah.
Have
I also,
autism, and this is a place where you can come and hang out with other people, or you know what I mean, and hear some stories, or if you're, like you said, you're supporting, have a family member that's, I mean, I think that's awesome because I don't know enough about all of that. So what a great place for me to go and listen to all the different stories. It's
yeah. And
great.
I also get tired of some of there's some Hollywood actors, not pointing fingers, but there's some of them who it's like, oh, we need to cure autism. And I was like, why? It's not a disease. You can't just wake up with it one day. You can be diagnosed later on in life with it, but y- you're born with it. And it's like, it might not be detectable right away. You might not even realize. I read in a book, it's called, and I believe I got the quote from this book. It's called Funny, You Don't Look Autistic. And it was by this autistic comedian. And I remember, I think it was from that book. I read a lot of books, so I might mix a quote from one of
Yep.
the two,
Yep.
but I remember the quote, one of the quotes I read somewhere. I hope it's that book, but it said, perhaps maybe we're a little bit all autistics as ourselves. We all have a little slight bit of autism somewhere in our DNA. Might not be too detectable, but if we do some research uh, or go for the test or diagnosis or whatever, it might show up. Might be a
What
sliver.
what exactly is autism? Like what are they looking for? Like what, because I know that the autistic people are actually much brighter than ones that aren't autistic. I know that the IQs and everything is very, very high. They're um, just not fitting into the society box as it used to be. So
Well, I well, when I was getting diagnosed, I don't exactly remember the whole tests per se,
yeah.
but we do have repetitive behaviors. So, for instance, I like to repeat quotes and stuff from movies and TV shows and what my dad says, which have gotten me into trouble multiple times. Uh, I'm not going to repeat them now because
Yeah,
that would be,
but that's your
uh,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've gotten better over the years, and it's like, okay, I can't repeat this over here. Or years ago, I didn't have a filter. Uh, uh, I mean, just because I didn't know what the right place and what time and the time to do such a thing, do such a thing. I mean, not that it's acceptable anywhere, but I mean, if it's in with your own house, it's like, oh, okay, well, I might be frowned upon by my parents, but or it might be a funny moment, uh, but my point is like I can repeat quotes and stuff from TV shows, movies. Something I heard from a teacher that I thought, oh, I like that quote, or that's going to stick with me. But then there's stuff from high school I don't remember anything from because I remember the stuff that, hey, I really found this interesting. I didn't find anything interesting.
Yeah. 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 I totally understand that. I remember going to school and thinking, because I struggled in school as well and thought kind of I was stupid growing up until I then got into hairdressing. And then that was all 3 years of science, right? All the body and the layers of the skin and the diseases and I 98, 100% on every test. Well, I couldn't spell still, but streptococcus and all these, hair tuberculosis and everything. It was, I loved it. And then it was like, oh, I'm not stupid. Like it was just finding something that grabbed my attention. And then it was, yeah. So I totally hear what you're saying. And thank God that that's a thing that some passion kind of comes in and finds us to help us to get into learning something that we are passionate about, right?
Yeah, and it's not just even that too. It's like there's also like if somebody doesn't always look someone in the eye when they're speaking. For me, over the years, I've gotten better at looking people in the eye, but I'm always been caution with that because I always feel like when somebody tells me, "Look them me in the eye," I was like, "Oh boy, I'm in trouble," or, and
Oh,
then but then I also, I don't want to be like I don't want to be accused of staring at someone and then they'd be like, "What are you staring at?" I was like, I'm not staring. I'm looking at the walls behind someone, or I might be looking at the door to see who's coming in. So it's like
yeah,
I could be looking at you, but I'm not looking at you.
yeah.
I've gotten better by playing a game. So like I sometimes look to the left of someone, to the right of someone, and like just so I don't feel like, oh, someone's gonna accuse me of staring at them, and then it's like, well, aren't you a weirdo? And it's like, no, it just how long am I supposed to look at someone in their eye? And it's like, then it's gonna be really awkward. Why do you look at me in the eye like that?
Oh.
I don't have an answer.
So you've had a few experiences where probably when you were younger where that happened and it kind of traumatized you a little bit by the sounds of it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
mostly
comfortableness.
because of my parents, like, oh, look me in the eye. I was like, I don't want to be forced to look someone in the eye. And so over the years, like I've gotten better. Like, okay, okay, hold eye contact maybe for a few, like 2 or 3 seconds, then go wander around their like path, like what's around them. So it's like, oh, still paying attention, just not. I don't want to be accused of anything. And then like, oh.
So isn't that interesting? Because those are the thoughts that are running through your mind, which are kind of building some fear for you almost, right? And it's probably
Yeah,
because an experience you had when you were younger that's kind of like made you feel like, well, like now I'm not comfortable because I don't know what the right thing. Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that. That's I bet there's a lot of people that have that because it's not an easy thing to do, is it? I remember actually learning to have eye contact, being a hairstylist, right? And then you had to talk to them and figure out how to cut their hair, right? So, but I remember learning that, and it's definitely a thing that you learn over time.
yeah, and like, another thing that they might look for is like for me, and they looked at like my different kind of fine motor skills. Mine have not always been the best. like I can, uh, I'm I love to work out. But I mean, I don't think I could ever do. I can never do team sports because not the uh, I'm not very quick. I can I do karate, but it's in a controlled environment, and I work with people who like, okay, if I don't hold the pads like right off the bat, they're not gonna like, oh, go and kick me right in the leg. I mean, unless it was sparring, but if it's just pad training, they're not gonna like do something to hurt me. Then they know how like, oh, I can control my kicks, I can control my punches, and so I can. There's sometimes when I'm in the class, my brain is like, I'm thinking of the moves, and my hands want to like put the pads right in the right place, but my brain's saying, "What was the move again?" And it's like, so it's sending two different signals from my brains to my arms, and it's like, "Geez, I already seen this," and it's like, and I already did it like 3 times already. Why can't I do the fourth? And like, come on, brain. And so sometimes the mixed signals, and so it's like a slight, maybe 1 or 2 second delay. So it's not the quickest.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. And so is that kind of a common thread for autism? Like if you're in the spectrum, you would notice that that's kind of delayed.
Uh, I don't necessarily know if it's common. I just know that I'm saying from my point of view that
What
that's
you
what's happened to me. And I'm not saying it's all about me, but I can't speak for everyone because everyone on the spectrum is different. But there
okay?
might be a slight delay in speech because they have millions of thoughts going on in their head, or some can't uh, talk to for a full sentence, some can't talk at all. For
Yeah,
like, uh, for instance, sometimes the reason I take the maybe 1 or 2 second pause is because I have many thoughts going on in my head, uh, figuring out figuring out, oh, when to do this, when to do that, and which story to bring up here, which story to bring out there, which story to pull from this archive, and so it's kind of like, oh my lord, where
yeah. Yeah, I struggle with that as well because it just I'll start to tell a story and then something will kick in that I will remind me of something else, and then I'll start that and I've done it for pretty much my whole life, and then I do come back around and wrap everything up, but it's definitely an interesting thing where I lose people in what it is that I'm trying to share quickly with because I'll jump around a couple of topics that are in that same idea. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, though I've been getting better at doing what I'm supposed to be speaking on because after like today has been 141 guest appearances, so I've been on very quick shows, and then I've been on very long ones for one of the longest ones I've been on was like an hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, can you talk that long? It's like, can I talk that long? And it's like, by the time that you're done, when we're done with that episode, you're gonna be wishing I was not on the episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes you get into a conversation and you're enjoying it, but yeah, I know that lots of my podcasts are a little bit too long, and sometimes I have to do a part one and part two. So I won't keep you on and do that to you today though.
Oh,
I
please
really
do.
I appreciate you coming and sharing this information because I think it's fascinating. And I'm going to go on your podcast and listen. I think that that's what a great way to kind of get the gist of how people are experiencing their lives, right?
Yeah, and I never get. Sometimes I feel like I feel like the autism diagnosis and tests need to be kind of reconfigured a little bit because because at least when I was young, when I was younger, when I got diagnosed, and I think I like to say third grade, my mom says fourth grade, and we still debate it here and there, but but one of- but but where I've kind of find it totally unfair and kind of rigged a little bit is that yeah, I might not know a skill right then and there, and but there's never a follow-up later on. And it's like, yeah, and it's like, how about you follow up with me in like 5 or 10 years? Hey, did you learn how to? I'm just going to use this as an example. Did you learn how to cook? I mean, I know how to cook, but I'm
Yeah.
just as
Yeah.
an example. And I'm like, okay, well, we can still learn it. It's like just because we don't know this skill right this then and there during this test, and like how about you follow back up later to see if did we meet this expectation? Do we need to still work on it? It's like it's once and done, and then they kind of make it. And I kind of felt like, oh, is this written in stone? Like, oh, can I never learn this? I didn't know how to tie my shoes right away. I learned how to tie my shoes.
Do you know what? That's a problem. What you're explaining right there, that's a big problem because what that's telling you directly is that you're not enough. You're not, you're not meeting up to this. Like this testing and stuff that they do, I've had my kids all tested throughout the years. And first of all, it segregates them. And second of all, they're, they're brilliant in other ways that the other kids aren't, right? Like it's like, I don't know, we're just all out of that makes me upset. So you know what, maybe why doesn't that be your mission? Why don't you get to work on finding from other people what their thoughts are on how could that be revamped so that that doesn't happen to the young kids that are coming in now, because that's wrong. It's totally wrong. That for your whole life now you're like they're these kids are looking like I'm not enough, I'm not whole, I'm not. That's not the truth, right? That is not the truth. And it's, we go through our whole life already even without any um you know all of us have something going on. I'll tell you that right now. Nobody's freaking perfect. And maybe the some people are in and everything's working for them for this what the society has, put up for meeting expectations. But it needs to change. It needs to be revamped because half of us don't fit into that box. I'm sure that half, the left brain people are good at, the schooling and they become the lawyers and the doctors and stuff. But there's other people that are artistic that are more in the right brain that then don't get those same opportunities because it's kind of geared for everybody that's good at, has their straight A students and their matriculations and their, do you know what I mean? But we're not all developed like that.
Yeah,
So
and that's why I want to work for myself because as a motivational speaker, because I'm afraid to. I've heard companies like Microsoft and Amazon, Apple are getting better at hiring people with autism and and uh, having work environments for them, but but for me, I want to go off on my own because I, I'm afraid that I'm gonna probably piss off an employer or a manager with my 100+ questions because
yeah,
uh, I feel like I do that with some of my professors at my school, and and I'm not saying it's true, but that's just sometimes my perception. And it's like, I'm sorry I didn't get this the first time around. It's like I had to ask you this question in multiple different ways until I finally, hey, oh wait, now I get this.
right. Because we all learn differently, right? And
Yeah.
I did a podcast with a lady who's like a pioneer in this field of Coach Sandy Levy Lundeen. And I just actually have been doing some work with her. And that's what she's educated in is that that children all learn differently. And my children do. They're myself and all my girls have struggled through the regular system. There needs to be alternative things that, yeah, I think you've got some big shoes to fill there. Why don't you revamp that whole way that it's looked at? Just start asking yourself, what does this need to look like for it to feel that we're not, not excluded, not whole, not, not doing it right, or like, because that's a terrible thing for a little person to have as a perception from others in the system, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
bad enough our siblings or our parents to happen, and we have enough damage done there. Every child has it, but then you go
yeah,
outside and you're receiving that from teachers in a school system, and it's, yeah.
yeah. And I'm not saying like, okay, get rid of all the tests. I'm
No,
like, what I'm saying is like, test us what we know already. And it's like if, and it's like, and it's like, but if we need to work on A, B, C, and D, well, follow us up. If it's like an autism diagnosis
yeah,
test, or and like follow up within like 10 years and say, hey, did you learn A, B, C, and D, or whatever? And because
yeah,
it's like, okay, I can learn to tie my shoes still. And I was like, it's not like I'm 29 and I can't tie my shoes. I
right,
now I was like, I learned how to tie my shoes. Now I just got slip-on shoes
yeah,
recently, just because I like just slipping my shoes on and off, and it's like, not that I'm not gonna ever go back to tying my shoes again. Just I was like, yeah, I like these Skechers, and it's like, oh, there's no ties on it. Okay, sure, why not?
yeah. Yeah, I think what you're saying is really important. I think it's really important what you're saying, and you're not the only one that's having that experience, right? And
Yeah,
it's damaging. Like, have a system where you get to succeed, that you get to be like, okay, so these are the ones I'm going to work on, right? It's going to take me X amount, and then here I succeeded at that, so that there's a win coming up, instead of a I'm not enough, or I wasn't whole enough, and I don't get to show that can do this, or I don't get to prove that I am brilliant, right? It's
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know,
And
to do that to a human being, it's just sad, and that's what's happening.
well, it's funny. In one of the co-author books I've written, I helped write. I said that it's it kind of feels demoralizing after a while, being just told of everything you won't be able to do because the data shows this. And it's like, well, perhaps your data is a little screwy, uh,
Right.
because even on my own website, my data can be screwy at times because of uh, robots on the web crawling my website, or
Yeah.
it could also be someone stealing my content and trying to do this. And it's like, data is not 100% accurate. And they look at the weather people; they can be wrong like 100% of the time, and yet,
They still get paid.
yeah. And I'm not saying like, okay, go fire them or anything. I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's like, how about we revamp this a little bit, because it's a little screwy, and data's not 100% accurate. And because trust the numbers. Well, unfortunately, can it's like, how about you dig a little deeper? Is the numbers that accurate? And it's like, and and if it is accurate, how about you, instead of saying, "Oh, this is you won't be able to do any of this," how about you say, "Well, it might be harder for this person to do this, but it's not impossible, because impossible is the
Not a
opposite of impossible is it is possible. I am possible."
right.
So
Polarized universe. You got it. Yeah. And the 4 minute mile wasn't possible at one point too. And then somebody did it, and then everybody else was doing it right after. So there's that, right?
yeah, it gets it gets annoying with these standards in society, because it's like, hell,
It,
I'm never gonna live up to society's standards, and I was like, I don't care. Society sucks sometimes.
yeah. No, it does. And I think that this awareness and this understanding from people who don't know, like myself, is huge. It's important. Like what you're saying is important because it's damaging our children and it's damaging like the children that are autistic now. Like, what is the numbers that came out? Like there was 1 in 1,000 or something, or 1 in 10 million, and then there's 1 in 1,000. I remember seeing that it just started coming more and more and more and more. And then and this is how you're being treated and educated from that's how the system's set up is to it's not good. That's not good, right? Because you're already struggling. You're already in a spot where you're feeling that way. And then to have somebody verify to you that that's actually where you are and that's where you're going to stay, that's not the truth. Because like you said, anything's possible, right? It just is. If we can think it and we can feel it, we can have it. So there's that.
Yeah.
They've proven that now.
And it's funny, my they even told me I wouldn't be able to read higher than a second grade level. Uh, in seventh grade, I read all the Harry Potter books from start to finish. And even if I didn't know the words in the book, I mean, if I didn't know a word in the book, I either went on my computer and Googled it. I believe Google was around in 2007.
Yeah.
Uh,
Good
so, so I Googled it, I looked it up, and if I didn't understand it, I asked my teacher or I asked my parents and whoever was closer or wherever I was, and so I learned over time. And then when I saw the word again, it's like, hey, I already know what this means. And so
for you.
I kept reading it. And my special education teacher in seventh grade, she challenged me to tell me it's like if you want to succeed in life, you gotta have to challenge yourself because it's like these books and that they're having us read is only meant for a certain level of reading, and I was reading higher than a second grade level in seventh grade, and and like some of these other books that we had to read was like it was too easy for me, and I was like, I don't think my school district ever Uh, the like the game as a kid, like fitting the blocks into
Yeah.
each one of their correct
Shape.
slots.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess they were trying to put a square peg in a round hole. It doesn't quite work, does it?
Nope.
Somebody needs to go back to playing that game because somebody got it wrong.
You're
I
right.
think they forced it in there, like, hey, let me get a sledgehammer and bang this thing in there. Got
That's what's
jammed.
going that's what's going on out there. That there's been a stage set and then everybody's trying to get their big fat toe into Cinderella's shoe. And some of them squeeze in there and some of them fit in there just perfectly and nobody's looking at them and it's all just it needs to be revamped. I think you've got a whole career, a whole life about you. That's could you imagine if you were the leader of revamping that and having people perceive what you experienced in a different healthy way for
Uh,
children to not have that experience? Because
yeah,
I know that I'd like to work on that myself.
I could see that, but and funny thing that you brought that up is that uh, I what you brought up was how I was like you should start asking yourself, uh, I was like, how can I fix this? How can I do that? Well, it's funny that because I work my own business and whatnot as a motivational speaker and run my own website because I don't have money to hire someone to do it for me and keep
Yeah,
that up to date and everything. I was, I, but I do go do that throughout the day, pretty much every single day.
it's a lot.
Something that's broke. For instance, uh, one of my affiliate programs that I apply to, I mean, I've been a member of for over the years, and I got kicked out like 4 times. Like 3 of them were by accident, and the fourth one, I'm not sure why. And I was like, that's a lot of by accidents. And and so now this company, I contacted them, and I and when I got home from school, I contacted them like 6 minutes later. No one answers, and I was like, "Man, you guys!" And like, and so I was always thinking. I've been thinking to myself like, if I was in charge of this company, how would I revamp this? And I was like, well, one, whoever's in charge of that program, they'd be out the door. Uh, because
Yeah.
this is like the third person who was in charge of this program. And I got no emails of what I could possibly have done wrong. And they gave me another apology. And it's like, your apologies are not meaning anything lately. I was like,
Yeah.
if this was like once in a very blue moon, but this has been like the fourth one, I think, this year. And it's like, you guys are not really living up to your name. And it's like,
Yeah.
I can tell you, and it's like, not going to end very well for you guys. I told
I
them I called my
uh,
lawyer.
yeah, I was sorry to hear that. That seems to be there's some just intense energy going on these days with the I think everybody's experiencing a whole bunch of kind of polarities happening, right?
Yeah.
Double-edged sort of very extreme bad and very extreme good seems to be a thing.
Yeah, and so that's why, but yeah, basically, I ask myself every single day when I have a problem with this company or a problem with this, and it's like, how would I fix this? And
It's
I go through every single, I don't look at it like, oh well, here's a temporary fix. I look at it as like, well, if this happens, what would that cause for A, B, C, and D? And then then I look at EFG and how they're connected with the A, B, C, and D. And, and so it becomes like a spider web effect. It's like, I probably should leave this alone.
No, I don't think you should. I think that you should keep asking. And I think that you'll probably get all kinds of support universally coming through you for your thoughts and what needs to happen there.
Well,
Because we need some leaders, we need some people that are going to make a difference and you know what needs to happen. So I encourage you to keep asking and let me
yeah,
know because I bet you come up with all kinds of new things and innovations to help other all of us really is what it's not just autistic. I think it's like it's in all over the place that people are being treated and feeling like that. So if that makes you feel any better, you're not alone.
well, yeah, it's funny. So I graduated high school in 2012, and there there's one lady in the administration office. She's been there since 2012, and she's still there.
Yeah.
I didn't know what her job title was, but she was a pain in the butt to me. She was a pain in the butt to my mom, and e- she fought us on every little nook and cranny. And
Too bad.
and and I was like, how can she possibly still have a job? And it's like,
Yeah.
if I was in charge, it's like, what is your job besides being a pain in the butt? And I was like, we weren't asking much, and during my IEP meetings, I was not allowed to talk in my meetings when I was invited there in 11th grade because it's like, oh, you might offend some people. It's like, how can I offend some people if it's a meeting about me?
What
And
the heck?
it's like, well, they want to control the situation. What situation is this? It's like, I'm autistic. There's no situation. And like, the situation is that you guys are a bunch of mind controlled idiots. I didn't say any of that, but
No, but that's the reality of what's happening there. There needs to be awareness and some education that more education as to what yeah, like what the damage that's being done from the system that is in place, I think. But
I even, well, it's funny. I said in my, whatever I said in my meeting in 11th grade, after my meeting in 11th grade and 12th grade, I got invited back to my meeting. And there's like, this time you can talk. It's like, I don't
nice.
remember what I said, but I bet you it was some I think I backed up my argument very well. There's like, he's got a good point. This meeting's about him. How can we be offended about a meeting about me? It's like, if it's a meeting by someone else, then I have no jurisdiction whatsoever to speak whatsoever.
Just think about all the people's lives that you've made a difference in, for them to have to learn that, the way that they've been doing it isn't actually probably the right way. So there's all kinds of, they're making you stronger by pushing you like that. And so then you're, standing up and kind of saying, well, no, this isn't right. And so there's the gift in their bad behavior. How
Yeah,
about that?
and plus it makes, I think it, and plus that's why I like what I do, because I do feel like I help people. I actually, my latest blog post, my latest article on my website, teachers have commented on my website and said, and like, this really resonates with me, that inclusion does work in schools as long as it's implemented right. And it's like, but everyone has to be on board. It can't just be, hey, let's just throw a few dollars over here and all the money goes all the way over here,
Yeah.
because it's one side, and one side doesn't work. It clearly doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap us up, because I don't want to drag it too long, so that it makes it too long for people to listen to. I have really enjoyed this conversation and the information that you shared with me today. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for
Is
having me.
there, is there, um, is there something else that you want to share, to let people know about how they can get a hold of you or speak with you if they want to, have a conversation or get some coaching or listen to your podcast? Did they just go to the podcast?
Well, just go to crazyfitnessguy.com. Everything is on the website. And if you're looking for me to speak at any events or shows,
Yeah,
reach out to me. I'm open.
good, good. I love it. Okay, well, let me know when those books are out, so we can help you promote them. Okay.
Definitely. And yeah, I hope it's coming. The first one should be coming next month or December. Yeah, I don't have all the details since I'm
That's
not the
okay.
one in charge of this whole thing.
When you're ready to share, let me know, and
Definitely.
we'll talk about it. Sound good?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great to
Thank
meet
you.
you. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.